Welcome to Comics Now. Today we're looking at 3 pages in Marvel's Venom #1, featuring layouts and pencils by Ryan Stegman, inks by J.P. Mayer, and colors by Frank Martin. Venom #1 is a great-looking book aesthetically, with lots of creepy character work and inky darkness throughout. But comics are more than pin-ups and mood, and there's some really solid storytelling going on that you might not have noticed, even as it made the book easier for you to read. I want to zero in on one sequence in particular, when Eddie Brock agrees to help the shifty Rex Strickland on a mission. The portion we'll be looking at occurs over 2 pages and a double-page spread. Here we are at the top of the first, and we have this inset panel of Brock in what clearly looks like a tunnel. Behind him, we see the dirty, somewhat indistinct features of the tunnel, but we also see these bright running lights. As we move to the rest of the page, we spot those lights again, still very prominent, converging very much like they do in the inset. It may seem like a small thing, but that visual cue immediately tells your brain that the silhouetted figure at the bottom of the page is Eddie. Closer inspection reveals the top of his blonde hair, of course, but a cursory glance at the page still helps you establish the relationship between the two perspectives. And whether you notice the inset first or not, the value of those running lights is the same. Another cool thing about those lights, the perspective of the inset panel makes it look as though they're flowing out of Eddie, like they're headed somewhere. The shot at the bottom, though, shows them arriving as they converge on the approaching trucks. It's almost like Eddie is bearing down on the trucks instead of the other way around. It's a subtle thing, but it gives Eddie an authority and confidence that you probably wouldn't feel yourself if you were staring down a big rig. Moving on to the next page, we see the trucks bearing down on Eddie, and there's some great stuff happening here from Stegman, and also some subtly deft work from Martin that continues on to the spread. It's generally better, in Western comics, to show movement left to right. It plays into the way we read in Western languages, with sentences beginning on the left and flowing to the right. At the start, we can see that Stegman places the truckers on the left and Eddie on the right, and so even before you notice the movement suggested by Mayer's inks, there's movement suggested by the placement. Of course, we can also assume movement because these are vehicles with wheels, and such things typically only use their headlights when they're in motion, but the visual messaging is at least reinforcing this imported context. The position also helps to reinforce who we're seeing in each panel, because the truck and truckers are always situated left, looking right. I know, they look different too, and some of them are in a truck, but these things grease the gears of our brains so that we process it without even thinking about it. We know it without having to realize it. So let's talk about Frank Martin's colors. Again, this is subtle stuff, so bear with me, but notice the main, all-encompassing panel on the previous page. Eddie is standing in yellow, whitish light, and the trucks in front of him are surrounded by something much more orange. As we move into the next page, this separation is preserved. The cabs of the trucks are darker and orangey, as is the view outside the truck windows in panel 2, and Eddie is bathed in a much whiter light on the outside. And so the layout is communicating the physical context of each panel, but so too is the color. We know where we're at, or what an element on the page is, because of the color of the lighting that surrounds it. So now we come to that double-page spread. The truck's colors meet, rather violently, with Venom's white light, which occupies a place in the midst of that orange. He and his light refuse to be moved, but instead disrupt the space and the color surrounding the truck. Of course, the star of this spread is the crazy visual of Venom stopping the truck, and if you notice nothing else about it, I'm sure the artists would consider the mission accomplished. But here again, the position of the elements reinforces who's where, and that notion of movement flowing left to right actually makes Venom's shoulder butt that much more savage. The crunching of the truck and the motion blur make it look like it's still trying to move. There's still a lot of energy there. But on the right side, we have Venom almost completely in focus, shoulder down, stopping the truck, And as a bonus, we see the men flying out of the truck and past him, strengthening the sense that there is forceful motion about him, but Venom remains solid and unmoved in the midst of it. This is a great sequence from Stegman, Mayer, and Martin, and a fine example of how a fairly conservative approach to paneling and color can hide some very capable storytelling. Let me know in the comments if you like this video, and if you really like it, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and tell your friends. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Haas, creator of Strip Panel Naked, whose analysis has helped me see comics differently, and whose videos are a huge inspiration for this one.